Que se dice, Napolitanos? Today I'm talking about my first year in real estate. Was I successful? What tips would I have for you if you're thinking about getting into real estate? Stick around, I'm going to talk about it. So, when I first moved to Florida, before I did, I came down here with my wife and we met several different brokers from different brokerages. So we basically just picked some big names that we knew in the area, for example, Keller Williams and Berkshire Hathaway, and a couple of others. And we went to each one and we interviewed them with different things that we wanted to know and learn about. And um, we did go to a couple of 100% commission split, but the conventional wisdom online was that, well, you really need to have a percentage taken away for training. You need someone that can sit down and train you. So, having a percent of something is better than having 100% of nothing. So, this was kind of the prevailing wisdom. So, the first brokerage I went with was a really nice guy. Now, I thought at first that he was going to be with a different brokerage, and I'm withholding the name here. I thought he was going to be a broker at that brokerage, but just before I moved out here, he said, "Well, I'm starting my own brokerage, and I'm separating from this previous brokerage. So you would be part of that team." So when I moved out here, I was part of that team, and I think I was there for about a month. And at the end of that month, I realized that although I really liked this guy and we're still friends, I didn't feel like I got the right type of training that I needed or was in depth, because you got to remember that all the training materials that he had used in the past was probably intellectual property of the brokerage he's with, so he was still developing his own training. Now the second brokerage I chose was in the area. They were a big name, everyone knew them, and I thought that, hey, since they're so big and so established and so well known, they've got to have great programming. And their training lined up very much closely with a style of um, prospecting known as Ninja. There's a Ninja program. Those guys are out of Fort Collins in Colorado. And their whole philosophy is not really marketing or prospecting, it's pretty much 100% referrals. Their whole business is that you leverage people that you know and ask them for referrals. So the idea behind that being, oh, you write thank you notes to everyone, you send Christmas cards, birthday cards, you send gift cards. You basically just try to curry favor with everyone that you know and ask them for referrals. And I thought that would be a great way to start a business, because during that first month with my first broker, I was doing exclusively cold calling. And cold calling, for the uninitiated, is where you call somebody who you don't know and they don't know you, they never wanted to talk to you, and you're asking them to preview their house. So in my case, I was asking people who were trying to sell their house on their own, for sale by owner. And yeah, most of the time they don't want to work with realtor because they know that realtor fees are expensive, so they don't. But what a lot of them don't know is that 90% of those houses just aren't going to sell. So it's kind of a wasted effort for them. They just don't know it yet. But that's what I was doing in the first month, and I realized that wasn't going to be sustainable. So I switched to the second brokerage, and I had a mentor they paired me with, and he was also a really great guy. But the mentor took 50% of my commission, and then the brokerage took another 50% on top of that. So it was, and then my first deal that I got, was a referral from another agent at that brokerage. So what happened was, uh, this agent didn't want to work with the client anymore. He was a so-called difficult client, but I actually found him to be really great to work with. He just had very specific things that he was looking for, and he just really, at the end of the day, he just wanted to feel like his concerns were being heard. For example, he felt like, on Zillow, he didn't want, one of the things he asked for was like, I don't want on Zillow there to be a blank realtor face next to my listing. I want your face to be there so people know, hey, it's a real person selling it. So there were just little things like that he wanted, but I found that they really weren't too hard to ask with. And after all, it was his property. So, he wanted to sell it his way. And, most people don't. Most people kind of rely on your expertise to sell it. They don't necessarily want to tell you what you need to do. But in his case, that's what he wanted. So um, I actually thought it was great, and I really enjoyed working with him. Anyways, so uh, I got referral. This was my first deal, and the referral came in, and I gave 30% to that agent because they had already listed the property. We just transferred it to my name. Then my mentor got 50%. Then the brokerage got 50%. And so, after a $6,000 commission, at the end of the day, I only had $1,000. And so all that work for $1,000. So my kind of suggestion here, I finally found a brokerage that I really liked, and I switched to after a couple of months, having kind of learned that this brokerage I was with was just going to be too expensive in the end. They did give me 2 referrals, but they also had a very high price to pay for those referrals. So my next brokerage was, and I can do a video about this later. I really like them, but they're 100% commission split, but they also did training. So the training that I got from my current brokerage is fantastic. One of the things you have to learn as a realtor is the contracts, and it's so important that you understand the contracts. And this was a broker that actually did a webinar, and I was able to refer back to that webinar again and again about the contract. And he went over every single line in the contract, which is really important. You need to understand that. We're not lawyers as realtors, so we don't write them, but we have to understand their implications. So if Grandma Chandelier, for example, is not included in the contract, it's staying with the property. So that's important that you understand that. So I want to talk a little bit about where the percentage of time goes. What I found is that about 10% of my time is spent actually doing the real estate work. So this means showing properties, listings, putting things in the MLS, working with contracts, working with escrow companies, working with title agents, and working with loans, and making sure everything is legal and keeping track of the timelines. That's really only about 10% of what you do, or what I found. 90% of it, the work that you do as a realtor, is aggressive marketing. So we're talking postcards, we're talking flyers, calling people. I mean, most days I spend hours on the phone calling people that at some point express some interest. Using Facebook marketing, using other types of marketing. And I don't do cold calls anymore. It wears too much on my soul. But people who have at some point expressed interest in buying or selling, and they know generally who I am when I call, those people I call. So I have hundreds of people like that. And I spend hours a day calling these people. So that's really 90% of the work that I do, is just prospecting and marketing. Marketing and prospecting. You call so many people. And I think that's a lot of the reason why new agents get out of the game. because they go in thinking that 90% of their time is going to be showing houses and listing houses and working with people, and maybe 10% working, doing marketing, maybe put an ad in a newspaper or something like that. When the reality is it's about 90% marketing. Like, you really have to understand how to get your name out there. Now, if you know a lot of people in your area already, that's great. You have a leg up. You might be successful right out of the gate in real estate, because the more people you know, the more interactions you're going to have. The more interactions you have, the more listings and the more people that you can work with. So those are all good things to consider. I would definitely, if I was starting new, I would start where I was at. I wouldn't move to a new area and then pretend that I know everybody and try and do real estate, because it really is a business that is belly to belly. You must talk to a lot of people. You must meet a lot of people. You must know a lot of people, because that's where you're going to drive your business from. So, uh, yeah, if I had to do it over, I definitely would have found other work for my primary work and then started real estate on the side. Now, it'll take longer to learn that 10%. It'll take longer to learn the contracts. It'll take longer to learn how to do a listing presentation, how to show houses. All that stuff will take a lot longer. But the reason I was able to do it is because uh, I had a lot of savings, and I also had a lot of, when we sold our house, we made a good amount on that. And so I was able through 2020 and now through 2021 to live off of those savings. But if I had to start over, I would have found employment here first and then start the real estate and start learning all that stuff. But more importantly, getting to know people, becoming very active in the community, going to events, getting involved with the government, getting involved with any type of way, any type of church, anything you can think of to meet more people is also really important. And for me, that this happened during 2020 because there wasn't a lot of ways to meet people. Everybody was working from home, staying. So there were some definite challenges for me starting during a pandemic. And then the other challenges in 2021, so many people from New York and other northern states were moving down to Florida, and there really wasn't enough properties here to sell. So it used to be over 5,000 houses. Our listing service would only show 5,000 at a time. Like, if you wanted to see more than that, you couldn't. You'd have to filter it down for what you were looking for. So in an area about, I would say, about 250,000 people, there were always thousands and thousands of houses. Those are deals you can be on either side of. But now there's less than 900, less than 1,000 houses to service over 250,000 people. There's not that many deals to be on. And the other thing is the market I'm in. There are some other real challenges. Is that it's seasonal. So we have most of our buyers come down every season from January to March. So this market is crazy, and that's a real challenge where most of the year you don't have active buyers. And now we have a situation where there's no inventory. There's such little inventory. I was working with a guy who uh, I was helping him, and we went to probably about 8 different houses. We put offers, full priced offers, on 4 of those houses, and all of those houses were outbid by someone else. So in this case, the client did not want to bid more than what the person was asking for their house. Kind of felt like it was just too expensive and it might be better to rent for a while. By the way, he's probably right. Much to my chagrin, I would have liked to help him because I spent hours and hours and hours with him. I would have loved to close a deal with him, but that's just the way the market is. So those are some real challenges. And so would I consider myself successful for this first year? I think so. But I definitely not as successful as I would have liked to have been. So I did do 8 deals in my first year. Most of those were condos. I had two of them that fell through, and the owners decided not to. They kind of got disheartened and they took their property off the market. And some of those were vacant lots. And then I've also done two rentals. And just a thought, rentals don't make very much money at all. It's usually only $100 or $200 that you'll make on a rental. So when you consider the hours you'll spend on sending emails and working with the landlord and handling all the paper, it's truly not worth your time. The only reason I've done them is, well, I had the time. But I also wanted to help people. I mean, I've helped a few people that is really hard. I mean, no other realtors will work with rentals, so if you want to work with them, you can, but you just realize it's not going to be enough to make anything. Um, so yeah, I think that yeah, I was successful, but not as successful as I would have liked to have been. And could I have done some things differently? Yeah, I think so, and that's what I'm sharing with you. What I might have done differently. So one is I probably would have started where I was at, or if you're moving to a new location, get started with the career you're already in, and then work on getting to meet people, know people, learn the area, meet a brokerage that you can work with part time. So these are different things that you can do that I might do. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. If you want me to extrapolate on any of this, I can, and see other tips or tricks. But yeah, my first year, I enjoyed it. I learned a lot, and I've enjoyed working with people. And yeah, take care for now. Ciao. Um, but I figured that was the cost of learning. But I also learned very quickly that this brokerage was too expensive. Oops, forgot to lock the door.